My mother fell ill, and I saw sides of my family I never wanted to see. My father carried the weight in silence. My uncle twisted that silence into humiliation, and hidden papers revealed lies about what was ours. When I finally acted, the truth came out, but it changed the meaning of family forever. I don't usually tell this story. It's messy and ugly and full of decisions I'm not proud of. But a lot happened in the last year, and every time I try to explain it out loud, it comes out like one long, bitter confession. So here it is. My family is American by birth, but we carry the kind of household values my parents brought with them. Sacrifice, dignity, a stubborn refusal to ask for help. My dad is the sort of man who will sleep on an empty stomach if it means my mom gets her medicine. He worked 2 jobs for years, fixed things himself rather than pay someone, and kept his pride like a second skin. He's the reason I could go to college. The reason I kept believing small things could still mean a lot. When I started doing well, really well, I never shouted it from the roof. I told myself I would be different. I'd help quietly, preserve his dignity. So I hid the truth. He knew I was okay. He didn't know the scale of it. I thought that was the right thing to do. Then my mom got sick. Real sick. Hospital bills arrived like knives. We tried insurance, then savings, then every credit line my dad could find. None of it was enough. The pressure unspooled my dad in ways I hadn't seen before. He started looking older overnight. But still, even when I pushed, offering to take everything, to sell my property, to move him in with me, he refused. No, he said flatly. I am your father. I will handle this. Pride, yes. Stubbornness, yes. A kind of painful dignity that clung to him like second skin. And then there was my uncle. He wasn't a villain in the movies, just a man who did well enough and never missed the chance to remind you of it. He ran his own company, kept up appearances, and loved to compare balance sheets like they were virtues. When he came around during mom's illness, he didn't come with help. He came with sarcasm and small, surgical insults designed to shame. You could have saved more. You should have thought ahead. Pride is cute until it eats dinner. If you were smarter with money, your family wouldn't be in this mess. He did more than talk. Over the years, he'd quietly manipulated the family narrative about money. He engineered conversations so my dad felt inferior. He'd subtly pushed to be the one in charge of family decisions, and he'd moved legal paperwork in ways that benefited him. He had access to family documents, and he used that access to rewrite history. The inheritance issue was the thing that turned our whole life upside down. My grandparents had left a will, an actual, clean document that put things in order. But my uncle had ways. He forged a version of the will, one that favored him heavily, and he made sure that version was the one anyone saw. The original will? Hidden. Locked among documents he controlled. My dad discovered pieces of this manipulation later, the small inconsistencies that didn't add up, signatures that looked slightly off, a notarization stamp he'd never seen before. He confronted my uncle. My uncle smiled, deflected, and made my father look like a paranoid man grasping at straws. Dad didn't have the money to litigate then. Pride again. He didn't want to drag family into court, didn't want the shame. But when our situation worsened, when mom's treatments were being delayed because of money and the mortgage was at risk, something in him snapped. He filed a formal complaint and petitioned the court. It was terrifying and humiliating for him, and he hated every second of it. For a man who measures himself by the quiet strength of his independence, going to court felt like admitting defeat. While the court case was starting to take shape, my anger toward my uncle grew into something ugly and blunt. He'd publicly humiliated my dad, gagged him socially and legally, and tried to steal his inheritance. This was more than passive cruelty. I could have walked the legal route quietly, or I could have stepped in and paid what was needed to stop everything. Instead, I made a decision that I now see in all its moral blur. My uncle ran a business that was always a little too shiny. He would boast about clients and revenue, but he was slippery when specifics came up. I decided to file a police report. Not a reasoned complaint, an anonymous report framing his operation as a fake business engaged in fraudulent activity. I told myself I was leveling the playing field. He had stripped my dad of power, so I'd strip his reputation. I expected paperwork, a slap on the wrist, maybe a PR scare. I expected to shake him a little and watch him squirm. What I didn't expect was that the authorities would dig in. Because while my report was born from spite and manipulation, it hit a real nerve. They found things. Not everything was mine to know at first, but the investigators did what investigators do. They pulled records, checked ledgers, interviewed vendors. The easier-to-hide tricks, fake invoices, off-the-books payments, shell vendors, started to unravel under scrutiny. Bribes to inspectors, safety shortcuts on contracts he'd sold as innovation, tax filings that looked like accounting gymnastics. The more they pulled, the clearer it became that my uncle had been living a carefully curated lie. The collapse wasn't cinematic. It was bureaucratic and devastating. Contracts were suspended. Vendors refused to work with him. Regulators froze assets. Investors immediately distanced themselves. People who once toasted him at family events now avoided eye contact. He lost clients, then partners, then credibility. The company's doors stayed open for a while, but the business that had kept his lifestyle afloat began bleeding out. Lawsuits arrived like vultures. He pawned off personal assets and still came up short. The man who used to lecture my dad about responsibility was suddenly the family's cautionary tale. But it didn't end cleanly. The court case about the will turned into a full-on legal war. My dad's complaint helped pry open old files and unearth the original will. The judge had to determine which document was legitimate, and in the hearings the inconsistencies were laid bare. My uncle tried to shift blame, to claim clerical error and miscommunication, but in the face of mounting evidence and investigators' findings, his credibility collapsed. I should say clearly, my dad did not know I'd filed the police report. He never knew I'd been the one to push the investigation forward. He was fighting the will legally because he believed it was the right thing to do. He wanted to restore what was taken, proof that his own parents hadn't meant to leave everything to a nephew, and proof that dignity shouldn't be auctioned off to the highest private bidder. When my uncle's business started burning in public, he came to our house once, humiliated, smaller. No more jokes, no more podium voice. He had threats coming at him from all directions, creditors, ex-clients, regulators. He tried to plead, begged for help from the same family members he had ridiculed. My dad, he walked him to the door, not with glee, not with malice, just with a tired, small refusal. I won't be used to prop up your lies, he said. It was the kind of line that had looked impossible coming from him months earlier. The fallout changed our family in ways I'm still cataloging. We won the will case. The judge recognized the original document, ruled in my dad's favor, and forced a settlement that relieved some of our immediate financial pressure. The mortgage was renegotiated. Some of Mom's treatment bills were cleared. For the first time in months, my dad slept without the weight of immediate eviction on his chest. It should have felt like relief, and in small ways it did, but the victory came with a price. My uncle lost everything. He lost his company's reputation, many of his friends, and some of his freedom. Criminal charges meant possible jail time, depending on how the different cases resolved. My dad won the legal fight, and yet I watched him sit in the courtroom looking exhausted, victorious, but hollow. He never once asked me if I'd been involved in anything. He never asked, because he didn't want to know that his son had stooped to such methods, no matter the target. And that is the part that eats me. Yes, I exposed him. Yes, I helped by filing that report. But I didn't expose him for justice in any pure sense. I exposed him because I was angry and ashamed and wanted him to feel a fraction of the shame he'd dealt out for years. My action forced the truth into the light, but it also crossed a line I had promised myself I wouldn't. I became part of the shadow games I promised I'd never play. There were consequences beyond court rulings. Family members split. Old loyalties severed. My father's stoicism, his refusal to accept charity, stayed the same, but the way he looked at me changed. I could see the questions. How far will you go? Who have you become? That hurt more than anything my uncle ever said. In the end, Mom's treatment continued. Progress was slow but steady. The financial pressure eased enough for our family to breathe. The house stayed. My dad started taking shorter shifts. He still refuses to take money from me directly. Instead, I quietly paid off several of the medical debt accounts under an unlinked company name, set up appointments, and made sure treatment never stopped. He never knew the specifics. Maybe that was my way of preserving his dignity. Maybe it was cowardice. I don't know which yet. As for my uncle, he's gone from dinner table bully to a cautionary headline. When I run into him now, it's a man hollowed by the consequence of his own decisions. Not a villain so much as a person who made the wrong choices and paid for them. There's a look in his eyes now that used to sit in my dad's face. Quiet regret. My revenge taught me that you can break someone's empire and still be the one who wins nothing. I don't write this to justify everything I did. I write it to confess it. I write it because the truth is murky. The same pride that kept my dad from asking for help almost destroyed us, and the same pride that made my uncle judge him turned out to be built on lies. I still hate that I became the instrument of my uncle's undoing. Even if that undoing corrected one of the worst injustices in our family. If there's a lesson here, it's not neat. Maybe it's that silence can be honorable, or it can be self-harm. Maybe it's that exposing the truth often comes with collateral damage. Maybe it's that the dignity my father preserved mattered a great deal to him, and that preserving it sometimes means letting the world know less than you know. All I can say is this. I would do a lot of things again for my family, but I wouldn't choose the same path if I could go back and keep my hands clean. Revenge taught me more about myself than I wanted to learn. My dad's pride saved his self-respect, but it almost cost him everything. And me? I'm still trying to be someone he can be proud of, without hiding behind secrets or breaking others to patch what's broken inside us.